Vancouver. Caught between ocean and mountain, it is surrounded on all sides by the great outdoors. The only metropolis in North America without a city core expressway, it hopes to become the world's greenest city by 2020.
I close the door of my house, walk about 5–10 minutes on the sidewalk, and I'm right in a mountain.
Everyone here hails from somewhere else. A third of the population is Chinese, and the rest, a lively mixture from around the globe. The people of Vancouver live in tight quarters. To limit urban sprawl and to control energy consumption, the city has found creative ways to manage space.
And one of the newest innovation in the single-family neighborhoods is to allow people to build a small house in the backyard of their home.
Vancouverites spend on average 55% of their gross income on housing. That's almost double the national average. Yet the city is also home to Canada's poorest neighborhood.
It's a really rare little place in the world where a very left-leaning civic government bought a building from the provincial government and listened to a bunch of activists who wanted to change the world.
Vancouver's history began here, in what is now the very trendy Gastown. But back then, this little neighborhood wasn't exactly inviting.
We go back to 1867, the year of Canada's Confederation. Big things happening out east, forest growing out west. It was still forest. But within 3 years of Jack Tayton opening his first saloon here, there was a small community that was growing up here, and that became the community of Gastown, named after the nickname that was given to him because he was fairly gaseous with his stories, right? So they called him Gassy Jack, hence Gastown.
Vancouver is a very young city, but it's done so much in its short history.
You're right there. When you think back 125 years ago, this was virgin forest. Huge trees, 10, 12 stories tall. It's amazing that a city so young, in such a short time, developed both in population, in size, and with port installations as important as they are today. That's, I think, testimony to the spirit of development in this city.
Who were the first inhabitants of what became Vancouver?
They were mostly British. There were Francophones here as well, and of course First Nations were here a long time before that. But as soon as the gold rush took place, so we're talking about the Fraser River Gold Rush, 1860s, then we were swamped with tens of thousands of Europeans, Americans, Canadians, South Americans, and Chinese by the thousands. They were here to make money in the gold fields, just like everybody else, and they were good at it. But at the same time, the Canadian Pacific Railway wanted Chinese as cheap labor for the construction of its railway. The Chinese were put to the most dangerous jobs. We say that one Chinese man died for each mile of railroad constructed from the West Coast. Once the railroad was constructed, where were they to go? They were forbidden from entering the United States, so they came to the Chinatown here. And that created a climate of intense racism against them. Life was not simple for them. We forbade the immigration of their women here because we did not want the community to grow. We just wanted to abuse their status as cheap labor here. That was the climate of the day.
Well, at least that's terrible.
Well, that was life back then.
So was it really the Wild West out here?
There were fistfights, there was a jail, mostly full of drunkards, if you will. There was no culture here. This was a place where you came to make quick money. So as soon as you heard that there was going to be perhaps a development of another street, it was wild real estate transactions that would go on. We think that Vancouver today is extremely expensive. That's nothing on what it was back in the 1860s. It's unbelievable to say that, but it was crazy.
Seeing as Vancouver was so far, did the rest of the country turn a blind eye to what was going on here?
Well, perhaps ignoring even what Canadian law allowed and what was sort of acceptable society elsewhere in the British Empire, we did have, for decades, the production of opium here. And it was considered legal for export only. Of course, we didn't have any opium dens in this city, and whites did not smoke opium as much as the Chinese. No, that's the opposite, actually. But there was a great deal of white hypocrisy about that, and in 1887, the year after Vancouver became a city, there was a major riot that was launched upon the residents and the buildings of Chinatown. So much so that a federal representative was called to sort of, evaluate the damages to make sure that the owners would be reimbursed. And that's when the future Prime Minister of Canada, William Lyon Mackenzie King, then a clerk with the federal, was sent down, and he said, "Oh my, we produce opium here," and went back to Ottawa, and then almost within weeks, there was a law that forbade the production of opium anywhere in Canada.
In many big cities such as Vancouver, the industrial port has been moved to 50 kilometers, say, out of the city, whereas the Port of Vancouver remains in the center.
Correct. The main part of the port is still there. There are some port installations that were on what we call False Creek. They have been completely transformed for urbanization back in the 70s, 80s. But still in the middle of that, there's Granville Island that we maintain as where we maintain the architecture in transforming into a cultural, social mecca, a destination for tourists and really for the residents as well. With respect to the port on Broad Inlet, what we're seeing, for example, is the reuse of areas that, for example, are no longer being used by the port or that are beside the port, and that's in keeping with what the port offers the city, a diversity of uses of multiple facets of life that we call here Vancouverism, towards a unique way of modeling the city. It's an urban model that is being copied now by many cities in North America.
Vancouver owes its existence to the Pacific, and the city has always evolved with the waters that surround it.
Vancouver's here because the railroad terminated here, because there's a deep water port that's here that's safe, and shipping has been here ever since day one. Without the port, there's really not much reason for Vancouver to be here. It could be 60 miles inland, it wouldn't make any difference.
The Port of Vancouver is the busiest port on the west coast of North America?
That's my understanding. That's certainly the way the port advertises and promotes itself. From a point of view of ship calls, I believe that's quite true as well.
Unlike most of the world's industrial harbors, the water here is very clean. The proof? Crab and salmon fishing right in the center of the city.
It's quite amazing because in general you would think of a port as a pollutant. However, on the shores of Vancouver you have beaches and you have wildlife.
Yeah, there's, even within our own basin we have resident otters, river otters, and we have seals that regularly haul out on our floats and logs and sun themselves. We have a large amount of anemones and other sea life growing right on our docks and our dock faces. One of our biggest problems is keeping sea life from growing on the boats. So the port is not polluted. The port is very active, and you have to be very careful not to pollute the port while you're working in it, but it is possible.
How do you control pollution?
We are partnered with the World Wildlife Fund, and we work on several initiatives around reducing our air emissions, reducing our waste emissions, including just garbage coming off the boat, making sure that we're not spilling oil, making sure that everything is clean, and that we're doing the best we can.
The key to making all of this seamless is a very efficient control of maritime traffic. Cargo ships wait patiently outside the city, for tugboat escorts that guide them directly into the heart of Vancouver.
How important are tugboats for the Port of Vancouver?
Well, in a port like Vancouver, where we move petroleum products as well as grain, coal, and other commodities like containers, automobiles, break bulk, lumber, the tugboat is vitally important in an escort mode to make sure that the boat is safe. If there's ever a steering failure, there's immediate attention to that ship. It's not a grounding or an issue. I think what makes Vancouver Port really unique is the fact that not only do we have a port that's very concentrated in industry, but we have people living on the edge of the port, and we have beautiful parks on the edge of the port. So it's everything in this port, and it all works together. So we have recreation, we have people living, and we have a working port all in one place. And it's integrated, and it's enjoyable for everyone. Heidi, would you like to try driving a tractor tug?
Really?
Absolutely.
You trust me because there's rubber all around it?
No, I trust you because there's wide open spaces all around us.
Okay.
This is our captain, Sandy.
Vancouver has ambition. It wants to be the greenest city in the world by 2020. And its citizens are extremely eco-minded. Car sharing, green roofs, and even green walls are all pretty much child's play here. The port is one green element among many. Community gardens are also a growing trend, stimulated by tax breaks for sustainable use of vacant land. The living roof of the Vancouver Convention Centre is perhaps the best illustration of local environmental considerations. This completely autonomous ecosystem is even home to bees, lots of bees, that play their part in pollinating the city.
I volunteer as the beekeeper here, and as soon as I heard there was going to be a green roof, I approached the people who manage this building and own the building and said, let's put beehives up on that roof. I've got 4 hives. Each hive, when it's fully up to strength, has somewhere between 50 and 60,000 bees. They would make it to Stanley Park. They'll go along the waterfront, and there are other gardens on roofs. If you look around up here, you'll see there's a hotel over there with an herb garden, and they may go visit there, depending on what's blooming. It's more than just that we're in the middle of the city. I mentioned that we get mice running around up here. We've got the bees and the flowers. Last summer there were geese raising their young up here, and every time I came out here they would give me a hard time and chase me around the roof. You know, you give them enough space and they'll just move in. They're totally comfortable with enough space living in a man-made environment, which is what this is.
Space management is an art in Vancouver. With strict laws against encroaching on parks, every inch of available land is utilized. Architect Michael Geller has a lot to say about his city's character.
The idea of living in an apartment in Canada, it was usually thought of as the way of life for people who couldn't afford a house. And then in Vancouver, we started to build condominiums for people who couldn't afford houses. But it started to change around the late 80s and the beginning of the 90s, when people who could afford to live anywhere started to think about moving from their house into an apartment.
I heard you built apartments for people who didn't want to live in apartments.
That's right. Because so often when you speak to people, they say, no, I don't want to live in an apartment. I don't want to be crammed in. I don't want to walk along long corridors. And so this building here, which I think provides a nice balance of indoor and outdoor space. And certainly it's reflected in the prices that people pay. A 1,000 square foot apartment in the buildings around here generally sells for $1 million Canadian and up. These apartments here at the front are all between $4 and $5 million. And when they come up, there's usually a fairly long list of people interested in buying them, because these apartments are very much like a house in terms of having a larger outdoor garden. So here we have 1,000 acres of forest, Stanley Park, and then another park, Devonian Harbor Park. Vancouver has a requirement that you have to have 2.75 acres of park space for every 1,000 residents. And so when we built this development, even though we were next to Stanley Park, the city planner said, you still have to have parks. And so there's a park here and there's another one on the other side of the hotel. Most other cities don't even have that requirement. It's very much a Vancouver local requirement.
Is housing still affordable in Vancouver?
No, it's a serious problem. It's the #1 issue in Vancouver is housing affordability. It troubles me because I often hear young couples saying they're putting off having children until they get suitable accommodation, and it could take years. The average price of a house in Vancouver is about $900,000. In many cities across Canada, you could buy the best house in the city for that price. We are very conscious of the fact that we can't be just a resort, that we have to be able to keep people who work in cafes, people who work in restaurants and who fix cars, that they have to be able to live in the city as well. And we're starting to work towards that. As part of all the major new developments in Vancouver, there's an obligation to create about 20% of the housing as more affordable housing. The other thing we're doing is we're making homes smaller and smaller and smaller, and because that's one way to be able to afford.
Especially if you live in a place like Vancouver where you spend most of your time in the great outdoors.
That's right. The region is their backyard. And one of the newest innovation in the single-family neighborhoods is to allow people to build a small house in the backyard of their home. Vancouver is being recognized internationally for this idea of laneway houses. Behind all of these houses is a lane. In the past used for storing garbage cans, but now the place where people are starting to live. In Vancouver, although we're building lots of condominiums, we're not building new rental buildings because the cost of building them is greater than the rent you can charge. These little laneway houses, however, range from about 500 square feet to 750 square feet, are renting anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 a month. The issue, though, is many people envision these laneway houses as being like little cottages. And as you can see, some of them are quite large. Many of the neighbors said, hey, just a second, this is not what we thought we were getting. There's no doubt that there are a lot of people who are concerned about the laneway housing, not necessarily because it's bringing more people into the neighborhood, but the 2-story or 1.5-story houses, they feel they're starting to look down into their own yard. And I think that's a legitimate concern. Whereas this little one we just walked past, to some degree, it doesn't really look that much different than one of these garages. And I think that's the key. If you look at this lane right now, I would think most people watching us would say, I'm not really sure I want to live on a lane like this. But as more and more homes start to get built, I think we can envision these lanes becoming redeveloped as greenways with pavers. It's conceivable that you start to get like a little neighborhood within a neighborhood.
Tell me a little bit more about how more people in less space makes things better.
In metropolitan Vancouver, we are literally running out of land, but people keep wanting to come here. The idea of living closer together, it does help support public transportation, which you simply can't do when you have the typical North American neighborhood with maybe 5 homes per acre. We essentially allow people to live closer together and not threaten the agricultural land or indeed threaten the water, although there is talk that maybe one day people will live in floating communities.
Actually, there is a small houseboat community here, right in the middle of the city. Very Vancouver. But before further development of floating homes, it's a priority to revitalize existing boroughs and help everyone find adequate housing. In the city's notorious downtown east side, groundbreaking social initiatives are creating a new momentum. The hope is to restore vitality in the country's poorest neighborhood. Architect Gregory Henriquez has dared to propose a bold mixed housing project on the former site of Woodward's department store, an important economic driver gone bankrupt in 1993. Henriquez's project now houses 536 high-end condos in the same complex as 200 subsidized low-income units.
If you look at any great architect in time, their work was really relevant because they were telling stories that were meaningful about their time. When people believed in God, you built churches, right? But what do you build today as architects? People build very large bank buildings, they build shopping malls, they build things that are sort of monuments to money. Real architecture on the ground is really rare now. And so our architecture is trying to merge ethics and poetics into one.
But building market value homes in a rundown neighborhood is a tough sell, and it took more than 12 years to launch the project.
It's a really rare little place in the world where a very left-leaning civic government bought a building from the provincial government and listened to a bunch of activists who wanted to change the world, and we were lucky to be a part of it.
I heard that the downtown east side is the poorest Canadian postal code.
The average income for a resident is somewhere around $8,000 to $12,000 a year. So we're sitting in the middle of probably one of the poorest postal codes in North America. The atrium is the central sort of meeting place within the Woodwards complex. The thing about it that's really special is there's a public right-of-way through here where the city of Vancouver has domain over this space so that it's open for everyone, which is sort of sounds like a very simple thing to make happen, but in a society that's so polarized with such extremes like Vancouver, such wealth and such poverty, the free market didn't see opportunity to come in here and develop it. So it really required all levels of government together with a developer to really do something that was really risky. So we integrated market housing, non-market housing, a university, federal office space, city office space, a daycare, the first drugstore and food store to move back into the neighborhood in 20 years, the first bank in 30 years in the neighborhood, a dentist. It sounds like all these little things that everyone takes for granted is something that this project tried to bring back into this neighborhood. There's 4 buildings on site. There's the large Flatiron building over there, which is mostly a market housing. This building over here has in it the food store. It has federal government offices for things like the National Film Board. Then it has 75 units of family non-market housing above it with a playground for the kids. This one on our left, top of it is a performing arts center with 5 different performing arts venues, black box theater, cinemas that play at night. And above that is 75 units of singles non-market housing for guys and women who are mostly homeless or living in single-room occupancy hotels.
Is cohabitation working?
Yeah, I think it really is. We've had very few problems in terms of everyone coexisting. In the singles housing, it's basically 100% subsidy from the government. So you're basically free.
Yeah.
Okay, the family non-market housing, which is over there, they have 40% of them are on social assistance, 40% are working poor, sort of McJobs, people who need, so they pay a decreased amount of rent, and then 20% are market. So there's a mix of people within that sort of the family non-market housing.
How different on the interior are the non-market housing to the subsidized housing?
The finishes are probably not as fancy, the kitchens and things like that, but they have the same heating systems, the same windows. The market housing here, a 600 square foot 1-bedroom went for about $300,000, which is very cheap in Vancouver. Like normally that would be for $50,000, $500,000. So there was a discount here because the land was basically thrown in by the city.
The idea of a mixed housing project like this one is to control gentrification in the area?
Gentrification is something that's going to occur or not occur irregardless of Woodwards, right? Vancouver, the land values are so high and there's so much need to build more housing in a little space, that development's coming this way no matter what. So we have to show a role model for inclusivity that is a gentler form of gentrification. So it's really sort of tricky, right? You know, and there's no guarantee that everyone's going to want to do it, because there's a lot more money to be made not building the social housing.
The Woodward's redevelopment project has been a smashing success. No vacancy here, and a long lineup for any available space. The growing demand for unique social redevelopment has also created measures to control gentrification. Some housing projects here have even imposed limits on resale value.
Hi, it's Gregory Henriquez. I'm the architect of Woodward's. We're coming up, and supposedly they cleared it with you.
Okay.
How are you?
Okay.
Remember me, Gregory?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to show them your unit for it's going to be a documentary?
Yeah, I can bring you down.
How do you like it here?
I love it. I like having the average size fridge with the freezer, the big freezer area. Me and my friend, we just made a big pot of spaghetti sauce, and we were able to freeze individual meals for ourselves. We made a couple of pans of lasagna.
I like lasagna too. Yeah. Right. And so there's 25 units of floor. Each one unit's 357 square feet, and has its own bathroom, kitchen, and Murphy bed.
This is great.
This bed is a Murphy bed. It does go up.
I've never seen it up whenever I'm in here.
I know.
I know.
It's just my cat loves the bed.
Yeah.
It's okay, baby.
Thank you, Stephanie, for letting us in again.
No
You're
problem.
very, very sweet. The statistics in terms of the cost to society, just the ambulance and medical costs alone for emergency medical attention for the average homeless person is over $50,000 a year in Vancouver. The cost to house someone in one of these places is less than that. And so when you think about it, societally it's more cost effective to get people off the street, let alone what it does for their lives and what it should do for us to try and help them.
Even with all these creative ideas, lack of housing is an issue in Vancouver. And what is available is extremely expensive. Even for the middle class, homeownership seems to be a thing of the past.
So is this your hood?
Yeah, this is my house right here. This used to be a Chinese schoolhouse, and it's all been converted. I've got two little boys that just go up to the school up here on the corner. My generation and the generation that's coming underneath me are never going to be able to afford to live and own property in Vancouver. It's that ridiculously expensive. You could do it, but you would never be able to afford living the kind of lifestyle that a city like Vancouver can offer you.
An unexpected encounter. This interesting resident joins in on our conversation about the local cost of living.
And what we're interested in is the living heritage, not just the aesthetic heritage. And so how do you design it? You create incentives for developers. You mitigate the harmful effects. How many local people did you hire? What's your local purchasing plan?
How do you make a business succeed unless you're not capitalizing A, on affordable lease rates, and B, what the projected future of the neighborhood is?
Is it true that Vancouverites pay over 50% of their gross salary on housing?
I think it's the highest of Canada.
It's the highest in Canada.
Yeah, we've got the highest ratio per income for Canada.
So you can find somebody on every street corner that's heavily invested in their neighborhood?
Absolutely. Gentrification is a tough one in Vancouver because it's an impossible thing to manage. You want to keep the character of the city intact, but at the same time, you have to deal with the realities of the capitalist system, that what works, works. It employs people, and what doesn't work fails. If you went into a wealthier neighborhood in Vancouver like Yaletown or Gastown, you wouldn't be able to afford it if you're a first-time restaurateur or a barber or whatever.
Vancouver now has to focus on the elements that motivate its residents to stay. One sure bet? Diversity, which can easily be found in the countless culinary possibilities.
Vancouver's a city that has evolved sort of always looking at other places like Toronto or Montreal or down south to Los Angeles or San Francisco for its own identity. In a very short period of time, we've become very conscious of who we are as, you know, a dining public, and we're no longer looking at great big steakhouses in New York to copycat. They're now looking to us, you know, Japadog, which is a Japanese inspired hot dog, huge in Vancouver. It's a big thing. It's now opening in New York City. You know, so they're starting to take our cues. I think it's emblematic of how multicultural and open Vancouver diners are to accept things that aren't 100% authentic to their point of origin, but are 100% authentic to Vancouver.
Thank you.
Vancouver as a city is very much a puzzle that has been hard for Vancouverites to figure out. And a lot of restaurants and businesses have not been very successful in translating who we are as a people and what we are as a city. And I think Tanis Ling, who is a descendant of Shanghainese and Taiwanese immigrants Tanis is the owner of Bao Bei, bringing in this renewed spirit of let me showcase where I come from without excluding anyone. And how often can you pair your fried rice with 6 different Alsatian Gewürztraminers or Rieslings? You know, they're some might say overthinking the concept of a Chinese restaurant, but as a diner, I mean, I'm not complaining at all.
Vancouver is just such a mixture of different cultures that this is an extension of that. There's so many mixed race couples now, and there's so much, you know, everybody mixing together that Bao Bei is just an extension of that. And Joel is like the perfect example. My head chef, he's half Japanese, half French, and he's like the most amazing Chinese cook. And my manager's French, Taiwanese.
We are one of the top food cities in the world, but I think we got to that point because we were doing interesting things, not fine Michelin-starred kind of restaurants, but things that were true to the place and true to the time.
Food is also an important revitalizing link with Chinatown's past. Comprising 1/3 of Vancouver's population, ethnic Chinese are now a vital part of the mainstream. And Chinatown itself is no longer the rallying point it once was.
You can see the Vancouver Chinatown since 1885. The city was founded in 1886, and so it's a very, very specific reference to the fact that we're 1 year older. We've always been here, and I think that's an important message that still a lot of people living in Vancouver don't even know. The railroad's purpose was to cut the travel time for goods going from China to Europe. What was in the way was the Americas. The railroads allowed you to bring goods to Vancouver, put them on a train, and there would be an express train that would take it right across without stops, so that then it could be put on a ship and taken to a port in Europe. The Chinese spread across Canada from Vancouver, riding that same train that they helped build, and they ended up in every small town in Canada, all the way across to Halifax. Port cities like Vancouver are important because they were tied to Hong Kong. The irony is, as soon as they built the railroads, then European settlers, or those from the East Coast, could get here in large numbers, and they looked around and sort of saw, you know, Native peoples, Aboriginal peoples, and Chinese, and sort of went, what are they doing here? Let's get them out of here. And so they started to clear Aboriginal peoples into reserves, but the other thing they did was start to exclude the Chinese. And the argument that was often made was, the Chinese are coming here late to take our jobs. But of course, it was exactly the opposite. From 1885 to 1923, there was a head tax, which meant that if you were Chinese and you came in, you basically had to pay the equivalent of about 2 years of a worker's salary savings, you know, and often it would take 5 to 10 years to pay off the debt. And only the Chinese had to pay that. It wasn't until the 1967 Immigration Act that Canada adopted a form of immigration where race didn't matter. After the laws were finally changed, you did have this large wave in the 1970s from Hong Kong. A lot of the Chinese were very used to growing up in a British colonial city. They came to Vancouver and they wouldn't accept second-class citizenship. You don't feel it that much anymore now because the city has changed so much, but the history of that is still everywhere. There's legacies. So one of the legacies is, in fact, this building. You can see the building actually goes from here and stops right here. The reason why it's the thinnest building is, someone didn't say, I want to create a building that's, less than 10 feet wide, is because there originally had been a building that was sort of normal size. And what happened is the city at the time wanted to straighten the roads. And so they used the power that they had legally to basically take away part of the owner's property. And rather than paying him full value for taking all of his property, because he was Chinese, they left him with this sliver and made the argument that they didn't have to pay him the full value because he still had, some of his property left. Chinatown as an English, almost a marketing term, it began in the 1920s through the 40s that non-Chinese began to have this idea that it was kind of interesting to go have Chinese food. And so the concept of Chinatown was that place where the Chinese were, and it was a little bit of China if you went there or something. So it was this exotic location. And the Chinese businesses, actually, they did a very good job of catering to that and promoting it and saying, yeah, if you're here, you're in a little bit of China. And they would do these ticky-tacky things that, almost in a kind of smirking way, they thought was stupid, but those customers just ate it up. So things like the Chinese horoscope and the kind of decorative elements to Chinatown that you'd never find in China. You get this sense of a Chinatown as a place not for the Chinese, but actually for the non-Chinese.
The Chinese population has gradually dispersed throughout Vancouver. More recently, they've settled in Richmond, to the south of the city. The traditional link to Chinatown just doesn't exist for this second great wave of immigration, originating from the most part from Hong Kong.
When the Chinese started to come to Richmond in large numbers, basically in the late 80s or through the 90s, they transformed it. So they went into the existing strip malls and created these Chinese businesses, and all these strip malls now are basically full of Chinese restaurants, Chinese businesses. 60% of Richmond is now ethnic Chinese, and it's the main place where a lot of the new arrivals from China will go to live. It's not a place that has a sense of history or ties to the past. Vancouver's Chinatown has a tie to the past. It's got the old buildings, but it also has this unbroken sense of being the heart of what has been an integral part of the city for its whole history.
The range and number of outdoor activities accessible in a single day here is stunning. Everyone is outside all the time. Makes you wonder how people find time to work.
I mean, you move to Vancouver, it's not for the theater scene or the opera house. You move to Vancouver for the mountains and the beach, And literally, I close the door of my house, walk about 5-10 minutes on the sidewalk, and I'm right in a mountain, and we start our hiking. And about 45-50 minutes up that mountain, there's a lake where we can go swim. So like just a few weeks ago in the summer, one morning we went up, went swimming in the lake for an hour or two, came down, had a bite to eat, and walked down to the beach and swam all day in the ocean. I mean, I'm spoiled.
Vancouver spend a lot of money on sports equipment?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, sports is a big part of our lives. And people love to be equipped, as you can see, right? Cyclists love to wear their cycling gear, joggers love to wear their jogging gears. I would say part of it is trend, but part of it is comfort and efficiency. Because when you're out there playing outside every day or every week, you want good equipment. A lot of us have what I call the outdoor closet at home. If you open that door, it's full of outdoor equipment, backpacks and coats and skis and
Does everybody have a mudroom here in Vancouver?
Oh yeah, probably for the gumboots. Like it's a room basically like mine is in a place where even if I come in with mud or snow or rain, I can just walk straight to the closet and hang my stuff, you know.
And Mountain Equipment Co-op is from Vancouver.
Yeah, this is where it was born. It's not surprising because outdoor is very, very present in people's life, and it has become huge, right? Cycling is the big thing right now. And I think it's due to the fact that we have Grand Fondos now here. It's the second year that happened last September.
What are Grand Fondos?
Grand Fondos is an Italian tradition. It's can be a race, but also just a bike outing, accessible to anyone, to high-caliber cyclists or whoever wants to cycle, whoever is courageous enough to cycle 120 kilometers from Vancouver to Whistler in the mountains. So the first year, 5,000 people, second year, 7,000 people. That's a lot of people training to do that ride. And I'm like, wow, this is really creating a buzz around cycling. So a buzz around being in shape, linked to cycling, definitely. So I'm thinking, wow, cycling, selling bikes would be a good business, because I'm sure those who are in that business right now are making money like water.
This is really nature in the city.
It is. I mean, Stanley Park, if you look on the map, is like the tip of downtown Vancouver. And you can see here, like this is downtown Vancouver right there, where it's buzzing, where it's crowded, where it's busy. And you just cross here and you can be in a little oasis right downtown. People from Vancouver love their park.
Stanley Park is the third largest urban green space in North America. Larger than Central Park, it has over 200 kilometers of roads and pathways. Its remarkable 22-kilometer seawall takes us all the way inside False Creek, where we hop on an aquabus to cross over to Granville Island.
See, buy local, eat happy. This is more the market, this is more the restaurant part, but here you'll find cheese, meat, fish, bread, amazing stuff, real amazing stuff. More salmon, of course.
Should we try some?
Sure.
Can we please have some candy salmon? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers.
Vancouver treat.
But our day doesn't end there. Cycling, walking, kayaking, and eating smoked salmon, that was just a warm-up.
So there's some commercial fishing boats where you can just go on and buy fresh fish?
Yeah, exactly, just behind us there. What's amazing is like we are in the core of downtown Vancouver, so we can just come here, get on that boat, and that is anchored, of course, and just buy some fresh fish, salmon, and just next to it there's like a little hut that doesn't look like nothing really, but they serve, to my opinion, the best fish and chips in town. Because it's fresh, right? So you want to go backwards now, is that right? Yeah, that's it.
Surrounded by and completely integrated with nature, it's easy to see why Vancouverites are passionate about the outdoors. Climbing the Grouse Grind, a very steep 3-kilometer mountain trail, seems to be the ultimate exercise, Vancouver style.
I'm becoming a bit spoiled, to be honest, because I live in such a spectacular place in the world, and now when I travel around, I'm becoming a bit picky. Because I'm like, yeah, those mountains are great, but mine are, the one in Vancouver are pretty good too. Since I've arrived here, I'm an artist myself, and I've always said nature will always be the biggest rival to culture, because if it's a beautiful evening in the summer, if it's a nice weekend, I'm the first one to take off and go in a mountain or go to the beach. I won't go into a theater room. That's just the way it is. I mean, look how beautiful it is, right?
The pinnacle of our day, the world's highest wind turbine at the top of Grouse Mountain. Where the challenges of population density meet the philosophy of environmentalism, you will find the spirit of Vancouver. It is an innovator in social development, and its citizens, resourceful and witty, are finding creative solutions to the complexity of its housing situation. Although a very young city, it is open to the world, influenced by the diversity of those who call it home.